Welcome to the Menopausal Women's Show for nutrition, health, and wellness. I am Michelle, and as a menopause coach, I work with women to transform their hormone health and well-being to achieve the life they want to achieve. On this podcast, I share research findings on hot topics, talk with other holistic healers, and share my own experiences to empower women to take steps to a better lifestyle. Now, this week, we'd like to welcome Marjorie. Marjorie supports women going through the perimenopause and the menopause with new strategies to thrive through their unique journey. So Marjorie's joining me today to go through some breathing techniques. So it's going to be more of a practical session and how it raises your vibrant energy and can support in managing symptoms that we can experience. So without further ado, welcome to the show. It is a beautiful thing to have you here, and I am so grateful. So before we kick off into specific areas, could you just tell us a little about yourself and your own journey?
And thank you for having me, Michelle. I'm happy to speak a little bit about my journey. I started out my adulthood after college in a very corporate environment. And in New York City, I quickly was running around, and I pretty much ran myself ragged from my 20s to my 30s. And in the middle of my 30s, things began to catch up with me. I had GI issues, I had anxiety issues, a whole host of things. I got sick a lot, and I discovered yoga. And yoga, as we know, includes breathing and includes movement and awareness. And that changed everything. So many of my symptoms were eliminated by doing yoga. And then when I was introduced to yoga's wellness science called Ayurveda, it just means science of life, I felt even better. So the Ayurveda is really about aligning with nature's rhythms, and it does include food and how we're eating food. So for me, the perimenopausal and menopausal journey was pretty smooth. So when I started teaching all this to my students and my clients, those that were in perimenopause and menopause who had symptoms found relief. And the women that I worked with over years, as they went through their 40s, they didn't develop symptoms either. So this connection between yoga, breathing, nutrition, and awareness really helps so much, these very basic practices. So I'm thrilled to share some of those with you today.
Excellent. Just let's be super clear. You said you found the connection between yoga, nutrition, and wellness.
And breathing.
Nutrition.
So yoga includes breathing and Ayurveda and the awareness. So yoga is about awareness, and we learn it on the mat with the movement, but then that awareness, we can take that out into the world. And that's very specific with yoga. And I started yoga 25 years ago. I guess it's going on almost 30 years. And it's different. It's a little bit different now. It's more like just an exercise, but true yoga incorporates all these other things.
Fabulous, absolutely fabulous. So how does proper breathing, right? Because we all go like breath work, right? And everybody goes, well, what are you talking about? I can breathe. I get up, I breathe every day. Our body's fantastic.
Yeah.
But what do we mean by proper breathing and influence the menopause symptoms? I mean, are you able to give us a like demonstration? Are you able to dive into this? Because to be quite honest with you, I think majority of the population, whether or not you're in menopause or menopause, does not breathe properly. And you have to really focus on trying it.
That is so true. And when we are not breathing optimally, our body tends to go into the fight or flight response. So if you think about when you're rushing or when you're stressed or you hear news, your breath becomes shallow. And when our breath becomes shallow, we stay in this stress response. And we talk about hormones in perimenopause and menopause. We're generally talking about sex hormones, but there are so many other hormones. There are the stress hormones as well. So breathing can help us regulate those stress hormones. And for those of you who've had kids, you look at your baby, your young child, they're breathing into their belly.
Yeah, that's
They're
the
breathing
beautiful thing,
down
isn't
into their
it?
belly. I have a
Yeah.
puppy now. I love watching him sleep, and this is like his whole body is expanding. And when we're breathing up here, our body is not getting the message that we are safe. And all of those stress hormones increase our symptoms. Whether we're in menopause or not, we're just going to have more of that anxious feeling. So I can do a simple breath right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're driving, please don't do this because we're going to close our eyes. You can pause it, or Michelle will have the timestamp. So I'd like everyone to place your hands on your lower belly. You can do this if you're sitting or you're standing. You can do it if you're lying down. And just notice right now where you are breathing. Is it in your chest? Is it all the way up into your collarbones? Are your shoulders moving? Just notice there's no right or wrong. We're just going to shift it a little bit. And we're just going to do this for a couple minutes. My eyes are closed. You can close your eyes. By closing your eyes, you turn inwards. There's already like a sense of calm. And I've done this on other podcasts and, other groups where we just sometimes have meetings on Zoom meetings, and somebody will say, Marjorie, can you take this into what we're doing? So now with your hands on your lower abdomen, right over your navel, you're going to send your breath into your hands. So as your breath goes down into your belly, it's actually going down into your lungs, which moves your diaphragm down, and your belly will move out into your hands. And as you exhale, your navel will move in towards your spine. So I'm going to be quiet for a moment. If this feels difficult, don't worry about it. Breathing in and out through your nose. And if you can, just gently use your hands as you exhale. Gently feel a little pressure there so that you're emptying out your lungs. And then as you inhale, you're really ready to receive the breath into your belly. Couple more rounds. Next time you exhale, place your hands on your thighs, release your hands. And as you inhale, you can open up your eyes.
Wow. Thank you for that. I have a question though. Sorry, I'm doing it. I was doing it. Okay. And I'm very focused on my breathing. And you said about breathing in through your nose and out through your nose.
Yes.
Where when normally with other practices that you use for sort of meditation, they say breathe in through your nose so you can really feel like it comes down and your belly pushes out, and then out through your mouth. So is there a difference or does it matter?
Well, there are a number of breathing practices. For this breath, it's like the energy is contained within the body. Once we're breathing out through the mouth, it's like our energy is going out into the world. And for this particular practice, we want that energy to be received and to give it back to ourselves. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So we're giving and receiving the energy.
Yeah.
Wow. See, you learn something new every day. This is great.
What did you notice, Michelle, about how things changed?
So for me, first of all, like everybody will know that I'm super like up here normally. So I tend to find that I have to really focus on grounding myself and breathing. But actually just sitting there and by the well, it sounds really bad, but when you're not doing it in and out of your like in through your nose and out through your mouth, it's not so obvious. So I was like, oh, okay. So I can actually sit here at my desk, working away or in a corporate office or whatever you do, and you can just go, and nobody would notice. So you can really access it. But I just felt it was like, oh, okay. So for me, obviously, for you, it's the start of your day. For me, it's coming to the end of my day, and I'm like, oh, okay. So where I was feeling tired, I'm starting to feel a bit more Balanced. I think the word balanced.
Exactly. And that's such a great point, because when we're not breathing properly, we feel tired.
Absolutely. And I never realized that. I mean, obviously I realized that obviously if you yawn, I say to my kids, and it's a well-known fact, go and drink water, because yawning is a sign that you're dehydrated, your brain needs, oxygen. But yeah, that's really, really cool. It really is that you just kind of like, if you don't breathe properly, you are super tired.
It can also, if you're having an anxious moment, also bring you back to yourself. So much of the anxiety is coming from the outside, and we're so stimulated with so much information right now that we can let that control our thoughts, our mindset. I heard you say something in one of your previous on your previous podcast about the news.
Yes.
So next time you're watching the news, notice how you're breathing. I promise you, you're probably breathing up into your chest, your shoulders are tight, and all of that creates more tension and more fear and anxiety.
And equally though, going that, like, obviously, I call it doom scrolling. Okay, so the news is doom, right? That's what it's designed to do. So I kind of limit the way I overcome, and this is hilarious. The way I overcome the doom of news is I actually have a subscription to what's called like a News Junior for my kids, and they package all the major headlines each week into a lovely magazine, but with a positive stance on it. So it's great because I sit there, read it to the kids, read it to myself, and I go, oh, that's happened this week. But it's just that twist of mindset. But going back, it's not just the news, it's you get anxious, okay, and overwhelmed when you've got too much stimulation. So it could be your phone, it could be your laptop, it could be the lights of where you are. And actually that really stimulates the anxiousness. You then get more tired because you're anxious, and actually this is something we could use to access in any situation, which I think is fabulous. Sorry, just kind of like, so can we just tweak back a slightly? We're saying it's got lots of these benefits, but how does it actually affect the hormonal balance? Because obviously there's lots of facets to the menopausal journey and perimenopausal, right? And it is unique to each person. And this is just one element, right? But the long and short and the science there is that when we come to perimenopause or the menopause, what we're losing is estrogen, progesterone, collagen. So we have this sort of like decline in hormones. So how does the deep breathing affect that hormonal balance, or is it just more symptom based?
Well, it's a great question, and I will do my best to explain it where it doesn't get too deep into the hormones. But again, I think that when most women are saying, and I hear this all the time, well, I need to balance my hormones. I need to balance my hormones. And they're talking about estrogen and progesterone and maybe testosterone. Most people have heard about cortisol and cortisol spiking, right? And that's when we're in the fight or flight mode. When we're feeling anxious, our cortisol is higher. That can affect our sleep. That can affect our hot flashes. It affects our energy so much. So by breathing, we're giving our body again the message that all is well. Fight or flight is like fight, flight, or freeze. It's like, I'm doing this on camera. If you're watching, it's just like, that feeling where you're like, oh my God, I have so much to do. And your mind is spinning and you're not breathing. And if you pause and you take a few breaths, like we just did, if you're in a meeting or you're with your kids, or even if you're driving, you can take a deep breath. And that settles your body back into the rest, digest, and repair mode. Most of us in 19, it's old, 2024 are in stress mode far too often. And our bodies are not meant to be that way. It's like we've evolved so much over the last few hundred years, but human beings are tens of thousands of years. So our bodies haven't caught up for this modern world. And that's why we're seeing so many imbalances, so many symptoms, so many chronic issues, so many autoimmune issues.
And that's really important, actually, what you've said there. And I just want to backtrack a bit, is when we talk about hormones and menopause, we only think of the key ones because that's what everybody says about. But actually, we have lots of different hormones in our body. So it's not just thinking about that, it's thinking about, well, okay, well, they're decreasing, but this one's going up there, and that's impacted by a lot of stuff. So it's really important to say that cortisol is that hormone, and that then is triggering some of your menopause symptoms. So we've looked at just a sort of like the basic breathing technique, and this could be like an absolute flat no. But do you vary any of the techniques to help manage specific menopause symptoms? Like a lot of women go through hot flashes. I've only ever had one, I have to say, and that I literally came over and felt like I was drunk, and I was all over the place, and I was really hot and sweaty. And it was right in the middle of the kitchen, and my kids are looking at me going, "What are you doing? You know, get a grip." But many women have a lot of hot flushes, night sweats. I know that I had mood swings and I was very irritable. And that was literally the start of me where I ignored the perimenopause symptoms. I was like, I'm way too busy for that. It literally hit me when I was like, oh, and I literally would be talking to somebody and then I would bite their head off. And I was like, this is not me. This is something going on. So we've just gone through the nose breathing, which is something easy, accessible, and the deep breathing, but is there any variation to help with specific symptoms?
Yes, there are, and yoga, and the word is pranayama. Sometimes I like to bring a little Sanskrit in. Is a whole science of the breath. I mean, some people just teach this; they just practice it. So hot flashes and night sweats are sort of like the typical symptom of menopause. That's when people know they're in perimenopause,
Yeah.
is when they have a hot flash or a hot flush. I like calling it hot flush like you guys do in the UK, because it feels like your whole body is flushing, and that can happen at any time. But there are ways to cool ourselves down through the breath. I also want to say that to start to be aware of when the hot flashes are happening is really important, because so many of the hot flashes happen when we're in an anxious way.
Oh, that's a good
So
point, actually.
exactly. So sometimes I'll be having a coaching session with someone and they're like, I'm having a hot flash. And I'll say, okay, like, what were we just talking about? What was just going through your mind? And anxiety and hot flashes are very much connected. So if you when you're having a hot flash, it's kind of like this, and that is kind of like the anxiety going up. And then the experience of the hot flash, depending on where you're having it, creates more anxiety. Oh my God, am I dripping? I'm, showing people, or I'm embarrassed. And all that makes things so much worse. So if we can pause and take a breath, and I'll get to a specific breath in a moment, everything gets worse. So if you can just say, okay, this is happening. I have the tools to know what to do. I have the tools to know how to prevent it, but from all the things that you've been teaching, Michelle, about the movement, about the food, about all of those things, so that we prevent them from happening. But the more we can stay in this rest and digest mode, the less we will have them. So that being said, when someone is very hot, they can breathe through their mouth a little bit more, breathe in through their mouth, which is a cooling breath. So literally the breath goes in, it goes over your moist mouth, and that cools off the breath.
Ah, so breathe in, so literally go.
Exactly.
Okay.
So think and again, try to do that through your mouth, through your belly a little bit more. So it's not,
So pushing the belly out. Yeah, yeah, I've got
belly
it.
out. There are some things that you can do with your tongue so that your tongue is sort of like a U shape.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows there to be more, it's more like sipping through a straw. So you can think about sipping through a straw, like, and then
Oh,
breathe out.
okay. Straw. I'm just
If
making
you're,
notes here. I'm just
yeah,
making notes.
yeah.
Okay.
So I could just do it for a few breaths. So you're settling your body. Okay, you're sweating. Okay, this is happening right now in this moment. I'm going to take a breath. I'm breathing in a cooling breath. And then I'm going to breathe out. I also like to visualize a color, like a cooling color. I always think about like the ocean, like a sort of tropical green blue. That outer world, that cooling is coming in through your nostrils and cooling you off. And then as you exhale, you can exhale that fiery color of orange or yellow. And it's like the heat is leaving your body. So if you're feeling like you're listening to me and this seems a little woo-woo, okay, I invite you to just try it and see how it works. And just the ability to say, I have some agency over this. I have some control over this. My
Mm.
body is sending me a message right now. All of these symptoms are messages from our bodies. It's trying to get our attention. And boy, is a hot flash a big sign. It's a huge sign. We've never had one in our life before. So this is a sign something's different. We have to learn different techniques. What we were doing in our 30s and our early 40s maybe worked then, but everything has accumulated up into how our body is working right now. And again, like you say, everyone is different. Everyone's going to have a different experience. Some women have never had a night sweat or a hot flash. So it's not universal. In fact, in some cultures, especially Japanese cultures, they don't even have a word for hot flash.
No, no. And that's interesting because obviously when I started my journey, and by the way, we like woo. My husband thinks I'm a bit woo-woo anyway. But I'm very much okay. If I don't understand something, I'll go away and find out about it. And this is partly the reason why I started off the podcast, is because I didn't understand it. And then I went into all the research and I was like, God, this is like vast, but I had to get grips with it. And I studied and looked at research papers, Japanese cultures, and yeah, they were like, no. And I was like, well, what are they doing? And the Mediterranean lifestyle, which is something that I follow because I follow it for my son as well. He's got pyrrole disorder. And so I follow the Mediterranean diet and they have less symptoms. And I was like, oh, so this is like really, really interesting. So yeah, you look at the different cultures. And as you said, though, what works for one person doesn't work for another. And I think it's really, really important that this is just one thing. And it may work for you. I know certainly when it comes to breathing, I struggle in terms of being present to actually do it. And I think that's what a lot of the Western culture do, is struggling to do that. But we're trying to teach you the tool set that can help, so that actually the awareness, as you say, the awareness is where we've got to start changing the mindset. There's awareness of what you eat, how you move, your connection, your journey, your relationship, but more importantly, the relationship with yourself. And this is where you're saying actually your breathing is the relationship with yourself, because you're breathing in that energy. And you're it's kind of like a bonding. I'm thinking your breath and this energy where you're breathing it back into you from the first technique you showed us, is actually, this is building that inner child relationship in that sort of woo type fashion. Now, a lot of other women suffer with weight gain, and I've done a podcast on belly fat, why we get belly fat. I've done podcasts on what we can do for food and nutrition for belly fat and weight gain. Also, sleep's really important. So there's lots of things when we talk about, right, people go menopause, right? So I'm stuffed, really. I'm losing all my hormones. I'm irritable. I'm anxious. And now you're telling me I'm going to put on weight. Now, obviously, there's control and lifestyle factors. Is there a connection between your breathing patterns and the weight gain or perceived weight gain that you get during the menopause? And I say perceived because actually your body changes and your body will change because that's the way we're designed. We're designed to have babies. We're designed then not to have babies and to become protective of our organ. So there's lots of things you can do to control that. So is there a connection between breathing patterns and gaining weight?
So I'm going to say that there's not a direct correlation. I'm going to say that if you are breathing properly, you're going to become more aware of how you're eating. And when you are sitting and breathing, and again, you and I are totally on the same page. You talked about sitting and eating and taking at least 15 minutes. For people who are just eating to get it done, and we've all done it, I've done it, you're in a hurry. Your body's not getting the message. It's not in rest and digest, literally mode. So you're not going to be digesting well, and you're not going to be getting the benefits of the food. I mean, I like to talk about the miracle of the body too. We eat plants and the animals that ate the plants, right? That becomes our body. It's incredible. So if we're rushing that, all the processes, the digestion, the absorption, the elimination, Ayurveda is all about digestion. Digestion is king. So if we're not getting those benefits and we're not getting those nutrients, our body doesn't really know what to do, and it can hang on to weight. Now, in terms of the breathing all day is in, awareness of the breathing. I mean, obviously we're breathing all day long. We're not going to be sitting and focusing on the breathing. But if every now and then you can be like, I can take a breath, I can take 2 breaths. Breathing before you eat puts your body in a receptive mode so that your body can use the food. It also sends your body the signal that you're full. And we all hear that. Slow down, feel that your body is full. Drink a lot of water before, so you know the signals that you're full if you feel hungry. So it's one piece of it.
So I would say there's one baby step, right? If you're going to do one thing, just make one thing. And I actually go, so I get, right, that some people are like breakfast, they're rushing out the door. So there's a hack that I have where I go, right, you've got your porridge charts and you just, run and go. And I get that sometimes people are eating at their desks, okay, at lunchtime. You can kind of, think about that. But actually, when it comes to an even meal, and I have a thing that, Monday to Thursday, all of it, myself and my family, very busy, right? Friday, nothing, okay? Friday night is we're going to cook, and Saturday we cook a family meal, okay? And we all cook, okay? I've taught them how to cook from scratch, and we look at the nourishment. But, you set the table. Okay, you're sitting down. It can be any day during the week, and you go, okay, you're having your evening meal, or choose a meal. Okay, if it isn't an evening meal with your family, it is you at lunchtime, then choose a meal. And you've got your glass of water. So this could be a really top tip hack, is actually you've got your water, you're just about to go and take it because you need to clear your palate. Okay, so you start recognizing. Before you do that, just do a couple of breaths to ground yourself, as you say, to get that awareness. You go for the water, then you start eating your meal. And I think it is very much key about the awareness, and the breath is helping you become aware. And everybody, myself included, where you just are not aware what you're eating, you're stuffing it because you're time poor, or you've got some sort of other stimulation going on. But actually, if you really, really lower that down and get to that digestion relaxation, you'll find that you're not reaching for a bag of nachos or chocolate after dinner, because actually your body is full. It's in that relaxation state. It's not in this, oh, I've eaten, but I'm still hungry mode. So it's really, I think, thank you for just bringing that. Actually, if you're looking at weight is creating the anxiousness, then the breath will help you decrease the anxiousness, but also it will help stimulate the senses so that actually Your tongue knows that you're eating, it's flavoring the senses, it's coming down, down to your esophagus into, and your belly just starts and really sort of like getting into that. So just by that grounding and then the relaxation, as you said, the rest starts to have more benefit.
Can I add one thing to that, Michelle?
You certainly can.
Yeah, this is something I really struggle with. And I work on it. So when you are finished, take a few breaths. Sometimes I'm still chewing when we stand up. I gotta go and chewing, right? Take a few breaths. It only takes a few seconds. And when we remember why we're doing it, so that's where the bigger picture, okay, I gotta go. Okay, if you have 30 seconds to breathe, you have 30 seconds to breathe. I compare it to going to the bathroom. You would not go to the bathroom. You would take that minute, that 5 minutes to go to the bathroom. You can take those couple of minutes to breathe and put your body into that state. In fact, it will save you time, because when we're in that state, we can think straighter. We don't forget things. We don't, you know what I mean? Like how many times you have to go back into the house to get something. We're just like a little more calm. We have we know what we need. And so it actually can just make the day more smooth, if that makes sense. And we're doing it at night. It sets us up for a better night's sleep as well.
And I think that's a key point, because I go, what's the worst that can happen? And I coached a client and a single mum. She was on one of my success stories on my podcast. And I said to her, she was like, well, I've got to do this, this, and this. And I said, what's the worst that's going to happen if you go and sit in your room for 5 minutes and your daughter's got a switch or whatever she wants to, or reading a book? What's the worst that's going to happen? I said, okay, you may be slightly late for dropping off, but she's not going to get detention because there's numerous amounts of other kids, What's the worst? And if you're going to be stuck in a traffic jam, you would have been stuck in a traffic jam anyway, even with or without the 30 seconds of you just like grounding and breathing. So, and I always kind of come back to go, okay, and this goes back to the breathing, the exercise and the awareness. It's just when you're feeling in that state, breathe and go, what is the worst that's going to happen? And then that way, it's a whole plethora of benefits that's across the board. This has been the most amazing talk so far, and I have just one more question, one more if I'm allowed. How long, if we start going in, and people listening to this, it can be for some women, and other women will listen to this and just go, no, this is not for me, right? But may come back to it when they're sort of like trying other methods. And, as I said, it's unique to everybody. That how long, by doing the breath work, will it take for us women to notice improvements in our symptoms with sort of like this regular breathing and breath work? And when I say like it takes 22 days, doesn't it, to form a habit? Well, actually, that one baby step is all you need to do is just take a breath before you start eating. And that's 3 times a day. Okay, at a minimum. Snacks in between, great, fantastic. Okay, and I can talk forever about nutrition and tailored plans. But if it's going to take just 1 minute of breath work, okay, at different points throughout the day, how long would we take before we notice a change in symptoms?
It depends on the woman. I have clients that have learned this, and their hot flash and their night sweats diminished within a couple of days. Somebody who was having hot flashes, night sweats 6-8 times a night. In the first week, she went to 3 a night, 2 a night. It was immediate. And within a couple of weeks, maybe she had 1, we were able to identify what led to that 1. And then some nights she wasn't having any more at all. So it can be quite quick. What I love to say is that and for someone who sees benefits right away and sees improvement right away, you're more likely to keep doing that. You're like, oh my goodness, this works. And then you're more likely to do it. And there's a cumulative effect, because your body is learning how to respond to things differently. I call, this is big about the breath, I call the difference between a reaction and a response a breath. One breath. That adage, just take a breath. So if without thinking, we react, oh my God, I'm having a hot flash. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? We take a breath while we're having that hot flash or night sweat. If that's how we start, that's going to be a response. You're going to remember that you can do this breathing. You're going to remember that every time you take a breath, you're setting your body up for diminishing and eliminating those symptoms. It's possible. And if you're going from 3 or 4 hot flashes a day to 1, that's a huge improvement. Huge.
I mean, it's amazing. I just go, we're very hard on ourselves. I can say I'm probably leading from the front of being the hardest on myself. But we are hard on ourselves because everybody thinks it's a quick fix. And actually, it isn't, because this is like a journey and we're changing all the time. So actually really become aware, and certainly journaling is one thing I say, to say what's your win that day. And even if that is, I've been at work, I know I was getting stressed, okay, and I was getting anxious and feeling overwhelmed and quite irritable. I've taken a breath and I calm myself down. Just that one situation on one day, then you go, that's a win. Thank you very much. I'll take that, you know, stick it in my win box. Because I think very much people are critical. And certainly for us in the UK, we're just coming out of summer season. The kids go back to school next week, thank God. People come back from like being on their summer break into work, and working with people and being in a community of whatever form, you've got different people's energy, and that then impacts you, and your symptoms, I find, impacts you. So actually taking that breath and really anchoring on that breath creates awareness, because you can become aware of how you are, but also it's just flicking that mind switch to go, well, how are them? And this is something else that I think, and we can go delve way into, is actually becoming people that everybody is on their own sort of journey.
Indeed.
So before we wrap up, and I think we could do another round of interviewing and podcasting here together, because this has been fascinating. I'd like to say, is there anything that you really have a burning desire to share with us that I haven't already covered?
Well, I think we covered so much. And again, thank you for having me. I just want to say to women that the symptoms might seem normal, but we've normalized a lot of this. And again, we have this evidence from this culture, but we've also normalized how we're living in the Western world. And there's a correlation with those symptoms. So I like to say that the symptoms that are common doesn't mean they're normal. Just because everybody around you is having hot flashes, or when you're reading online, it seems so normal, that you don't want to be normal anyway. You want to be exceptional. You want to be happy. You want to be healthy and have your friends around you, be helping your family. So what are these small steps that we can take to uplift you and uplift your mood? Because when you're feeling better, everybody around you benefits. So don't discount the power of one breath, in addition to all these beautiful tools that Michelle provides to us.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Oh, so thank you. I mean, phenomenally, just coming to speak with me and to my listeners and to your community as well, because I'm very, very grateful. So for everyone listening, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. And if you would like to connect with me to discover how my program can support you in your menopause journey, then please book a discovery call via my website, which is www.michellewells.co.uk. Also head over there, because I will be launching my new ebook, which gets you started on your menopause journey. But to find out more about Marjorie and her great work, and it is phenomenal, and we've only touched the iceberg, then I will include Marjorie's details in the show notes. So until next time, my friends, take care and make yourself a priority and just take a moment to breathe.